Fast and Furious 11 should bring back the forgotten member of Deckard Shaw's family after the Fast saga forgot about them. Jason Statham's Deckard Shaw will definitely return in Fast and Furious 11, but one of his family members should also appear in the final film in the long-running franchise. The Fast and Furious franchise started as a series of movies about street racing, but quickly evolved into one of the biggest action franchises in Hollywood. Because of this, some of the biggest action stars in the world have appeared in Fast and Furious movies. For example, Dwayne Johnson joined the series in Fast 5, and Jason Statham appeared in the post-credit scene of Fast and Furious 6. Johnson's Luke Hobbs and Statham's Deckard Shaw became such popular characters in the Fast and Furious franchise that they eventually received their own spin-off film. Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw was released in 2019 and revealed more about the two titular characters. Deckard's mother and brother had already been introduced in previous films in the franchise, but Hobbs and Shaw introduced his sister, who is played by Vanessa Kirby. However, Kirby's Hattie Shaw unfortunately hasn't appeared in the Fast saga since Hobbs and Shaw. In Hobbs and Shaw, Hattie is an MI6 agent who is forced to go on the run after she injects herself with a supervirus to prevent Brixton, the movie's primary villain, from obtaining it and harming humanity. However, it doesn't take long for Deckard Shaw and Luke Hobbs to track her down. Even though Deckard and Hobbs do not want to work together in the film, they are forced to do so to save Hattie's life and take down Etienne, the terrorist organization that Brixton works for. Fast and Furious 11 will need to juggle a lot of characters, but Hattie definitely deserves a spot in the movie after stealing multiple scenes in Hobbs and Shaw. Hattie is a great character in Hobbs and Shaw, and even forms a romantic connection with Hobbs in the movie. However, Kirby unfortunately hasn't been seen in the Fast and Furious franchise since the ending of Hobbs and Shaw. Since Deckard and Hobbs are both appearing in Fast and Furious 11, it is the perfect time to bring Hattie back as well. Since it is the final film in the series, Fast and Furious 11 will need to juggle a lot of characters, but Hattie definitely deserves a spot in the movie after stealing multiple scenes in Hobbs and Shaw. When Luke Evans first appeared as the villainous Owen Shaw in Fast and Furious 6, I would have never guessed how important the Shaw family would end up being in the franchise. After Dominic Toretto and his crew took down Owen Shaw in the franchise's sixth film, Deckard served as the main antagonist of Furious 7. Statham's ruthless portrayal of Deckard in Furious 7 made him one of the best villains in the Fast and Furious franchise. However, since then, he has found redemption and served as an ally for Dom and his crew. The mother of the Shaw children, Magdalene, has also helped Dom in multiple Fast and Furious movies. Magdalene is a resourceful and knowledgeable character in the franchise, and is so memorable because she is played by the legendary Helen Mirren. With her role in Hobbs and Shaw, Kirby further proved that the Shaw family is one of the best parts of the Fast and Furious franchise. Therefore, it would be very disappointing if most of the members of the family didn't appear in the final movie. Even though Hobbs and Shaw was a huge success, making $760 million at the box office, it doesn't seem like a lot of progress has been made on a potential sequel. In 2021, it was announced that a script for Hobbs and Shaw 2 was being worked on. However, in 2023, Johnson announced that a Hobbs solo movie was in development. The Hobbs actor suggested that this spin-off film would lead into Fast and Furious 11, but there haven't been many updates about the project since. Since Johnson announced a solo Hobbs movie, it seems like the previously announced sequel to Hobbs and Shaw has been cancelled. If this is the case, then many characters may never appear in the franchise again, such as Ryan Reynolds' Victor Locke and Kevin Hart's Air Marshal Dinkley. While the cancellation of Hobbs and Shaw 2 hasn't officially been announced, it's also possible that Hattie will never appear in the franchise again. However, I'm still holding out hope that she may appear in Fast and Furious 11, which is currently scheduled to be released in 2026.